So, we've known each other a little while.
A little bit.
I've got a different question to ask you for right at the start. And it starts off along the lines of, you started your working career coding medical technology, and now you're running one of the world's largest exchange groups. Any regrets?
No. I'm getting paid more than I was, so that's the reason. And I think it's all about a journey, and what you learn, you can always capitalize on it. And it also, when you work, and I didn't start it because I started to work for IBM, but then my second big job was coding for whatever, life, medical care, high criticality kind of system, and it really teach you what is important, what is not, and you understand that when you've got a batch process that is not going as you want, okay, it's the end of the world, okay, but you still have the time to replay it or to correct it and so on and so forth. So it learns you how to keep it cool and correct.
Thank you. Sorry to spring that on you.
No, it's fine.
So
Go for it. Be disruptive.
So most exchange CIOs that we talk with are normally the proud owners of just one exchange. You have 6, plus that's 6 regulated markets plus the MTFs. What are the unique challenges that you would say that this encompasses?
So far, we've got 6 geographies, but we've got a single order book. So it's more a federation of countries that agrees to come to the same rule book and to the same platform than having physically 6 different matching engine or ecosystem to deliver. The complexity means that with 7 geographies, because we do have a license in London too, so FCA is also regulating us. Is really that you have to animate a federation of regulators, of board members, of diversity, of culture, of everything. But I think it is also what is making us a bit different. So we like to say that we are unified in our diversity, and it's true at all levels of our organization.
Thank you. So Euronext has recently undertaken its biggest technical development for a decade, the program named Optic, which has replaced not just market data, but the core matching engine and a whole host of other platforms internally. What does this technology change actually mean for Euronext?
But first of all, and I will go after why we think Optic is different. But first of all, in most of the big companies, every 10 or 15 years, you decide to invest a lot of $1 million in rewriting from scratch your entire ecosystem. So that was the challenge of Optic. For us as an exchange, it was really a strategic decision between becoming either a technology taker or technology maker. And for us, we thought that part of our core business is to provide a platform which provides speed, reliability, efficiency, scalability, and so on and so forth. So first, there's a very brave decision to say, okay, we won't buy what is making us different, what is our core business to someone else, but we want to stay in control of it on this. Second, really the ambition to go with a blank paper, greenfield approach, to go to the design of all the new available, using all the new available technology and knowing that for half of them, you don't understand them very well. Usually in most of the company, you start by putting whatever, a lot of millions. It becomes the eternity project. 3 or 4 CIOs got fired, and one day you bin the project. So we do have the accomplishment to have finished it. So we have started something, we have finished it. And we are even more proud because compared to what was our NFR or ambition or every single aspect of the delivery is better than what we were expected. So what I mean is that we started with a level of scalability, configurability of the system, not that to develop a lot, to change whatever that can be changed by a configuration on this. So we've got a tenfold more element that can be configured than initially. So which means that on the other end, you've got 15,000, I think, lines of code in the configuration file. So you always have to pay something for somewhere. But basically, we can change the whole behavior of the matching engine overnight without a single code deployment or release of our pipeline. Second is that we had some target in terms of latencies and prediction of latencies. And even if we are just 1 year into this new architecture, and even if in labs we've got threefold more advanced latencies than what we correctly have, we are above what we have expected. And then the third part of what it has bring to us is that we shift from first being a technology taker, second being like 2 generations on technology behind, and of project management behind, of agile culture behind, of everything, to something which is really what you can be proud today. So we are not perfect at everything, but we are truly agile. We can serialize a number of projects. So it's not only the delivery of system, it's a cultural change and a cultural change and a physical change of this organization that has been transformed by this project, because the secret of that, it was not just an IT project, it was an enterprise-wise project that took us busy for 3 years and more, still taking care, making us very, very busy as we speak, as we have to deliver the last part of it, which is the derivative part.
So this technology change that you've talked about, that obviously I know a little bit about from my past, what impacts do you think that that's going to have for your business teams who are represented here within Euronext, and I would say Euronext's ability to provide its solutions to other exchanges?
So first of all, in terms of the Euronext core business, as you may have heard or not, with the delivery of Optiq, we have been able to extend our federal model. So Ireland and Norway have been added to the federal model, and both of them, Ireland is already 100% into Optiq, and Oslo will be into Optiq somewhere next year. So we will increase the central order book with two main benefits for our customer, either the new customer from Ireland or Norway, or for the existing customer. By putting more into a single platform for your existing customer, you provide more. So that's it. And the reverse effect is true for Ireland, for example. Day one of their first day of trading into Optiq, they double the number of members, and they triple their volume for the first days, because there was a pool of investors that was second to none. And the platform was the element that have allowed that to happen. So with the previous system, it would have taken us a lot more time. Not sure we'll have made it, and not sure that we'll have provided the same added value for both existing and new customers. So that's one part of the answer. The second part is that we are selling our technology. So we were selling the old technology. I will give you only one metrics to deploy the old technology to a single MTF or exchange. Just the core, without any kind of customization, it would have costed us probably 500 servers or virtual machine or something like that, and probably 2,500 man days to deliver. With Optiq, we divide by 10 the physical footprint, and we reduce by 3 the implementation time of the core engine. So a lot more agile because of the scalability and the configurability of the system thing. So our team will be able to compete more with the big players such as Nasdaq in terms of selling our technology to other places.
Very interesting. I look forward to seeing them on the road at various locations.
But by the way, he's quite humble because he was working for TradeZone, and we did Optic in the full open source stack, and we used what Mike and his former team was doing as the core of Optic to allow us to manage in a better and more secure way all the multi-trading aspect of our platforms.
So you're describing that. I've got a question around how do your control mechanisms in Optic give you the confidence that the tech is stable today?
It's an excellent question because I don't have the answer. With the requirement in terms of volumes and latencies and the configurability of Optic, so just to tell you, we've got a set of processes or thread that compose Optic, and basically you are allocating yourself per configuration which thread is running on which core and how many instances you want to have, one partition, multiple partition, routing between partition, routing between core, and all that is a configuration. Even using machine learning on AI, we are not sure that we have found yet the best configuration of the system. So it's a very, very complex system. This is why companies like ExactPro or ML or AI are key in our way to continue to ensure that every time and second and a lot of money we spend in labs is triggering progress. And progress is more reliability, so less bugs or less bad behavior, but also better performance and more predictable performance. So it's a never-ending kind of process. I don't think that I will ever be in a position to tell you, okay, I'm in full control of what is happening, because I'm not right now. Even I spend a lot of time on it.
I don't think any exchange can say that, fortunately or unfortunately. What are your thoughts? I mean, it's interesting. The first panel, Rob mentioned about the DTCC using new technologies. The last panel discussion, there was a discussion around various new technologies being used. What's Euronext's view on the adoption of new technologies such as just bots, cloud computing, AI? Where are you guys at with that?
So, in parallel to Optic, for everyone to know, we moved all of our posted infrastructure into the cloud. So, and the process has happened. So we changed the whole ecosystem of Euronext, moving from a legacy technology to a brand new matching engine, and we are pushing everything else into the cloud, to the point that now we are pushing Optic into the cloud, and with benefits such as the infrastructure as a code, which is, to me, probably in terms of DevOps and a kind of industrialization, automation, the most spectacular feature of the cloud. We are able to deploy Optic with 2 clicks. Okay, so a full infrastructure and including of the firewall, the security, the data lake, everything is described as you were able to describe a business process into a RPM before. So that's a big investment that we have done, but we have been paid off, and so on and so forth. We also did that because at the time, DevOps-wise, AI-wise, machine learning-wise, we thought that we wouldn't have the time to experiment everything. So we embraced a provider of cloud and an ecosystem that was giving us at least a start and something which has been tested, and we can leverage, really leverage the community to start fast. And we have made so crazy progress in terms of DevOps, industrialization, ability to deploy, using AI for advanced analytics, using AI for market surveillance, using AI for AI, ML, all of that for testing. So it's really something that is a change our life. And also, to be honest, when you are CIO, CTO, head of ops, or so on and so forth, reduce our cost base big time. So it's efficient in all the dimensions that we have done. So this is for the cloud. So we went all in, and we are very happy with it. It's complicated with regulator, but it is doable. So and again, we are regulated by that. And in the cloud, we include really all the DevOps, industrialization, capability, infrastructure as a code, but also machine learning, intelligence, artificial. To tell you something also is that with the cultural revolution, and it was at the time when we opened the Porto Technical Center, so we hired a lot of young people coming out from everywhere in the world, but mainly Portuguese university. So I remember sitting down with one of them, Thomas, who has left since and had joined a better company, and the guy was explaining me what he can do very, very quickly with AI, and said, okay, show me something. And so I just gave him a AWS account. And I'm not kidding, 4 days after, the guy has grabbed all the S&P public data from Bloomberg, integrated it into AWS, into S3 or whatever, Redshift, I don't recall what it was, build a machine learning cycle to enrich, control, test, and so on and so forth, and then show me a curve that was beating the S&P, just playing by the weight on the stocks over the last 15 years and beating it consistently. So, okay, it's back trading, okay, but it took 4 days to a young guy to do that with a single AWS account without deploying anything on something. And this is there. So we can say we like it, we don't like it, and so on and so forth. But this is here. We have to deal with it. Those people need to be empowered and used for what they can do. This technology needs to be empowered and used for what they can do. And I think that this is what we are trying to do. The last part, which is very important because we talked a lot about that, is around DLT technology. Crypto asset, digitization of asset, which are a bit different, the two subjects. But the digitalization of asset is going very, very fast, especially with assets that were highly manual, such as commercial paper or you name it, or highly illiquid. And there's plenty of initiatives that are going there. On the other hand, you've got one part of the world, and you like it or you don't like it, but which showing you that it works. All the cryptocurrencies are being exchanged today. Is it a currency? Is it a commodity? Is it fake? It's not my point to say. But the trading, the exchange, the proof of ownerships work without a custodian, without a clearinghouse, without a CSD dealing with that. So again, what our regulator will let us do or not do, it's not to me to say, but this technology is here. This technology seems to be super interesting for proof of ownership, traceability, as I said, distributed but open repository, because there was a question, I don't remember the name, about, okay, what happened if you ask your CSD to give you the story of your stock, who owns it, who bought it, how it get traded, and so on and so forth. The answer is that even for Euroclear, nothing, because they don't provide you this kind of service, or it takes more than what you want as an immediate answer that you can have if you had an open, either centralized or distributed kind of ledger. So we are working a lot. We have plenty of initiative, like a liquid share for liquid stocks that will probably go live somewhere in 2021. We have modelized a full from the issuance of the token till the addition inside on chain of the transaction of something that will leverage Optic, which is kind of asset agnostic today. But more and more, and to be honest, we think that the current use case are for assets that are not regulated. As soon as you got a form of regulation, you end up with the complexity of recreating a central function or a central storage of chain somewhere. And this is very, very frustrating, but this is what you can do right now. On the other hand, when you go for the full digital asset, and if you want to be as fair and orderly than listed exchanges as we are, or listing clearinghouse, or listed CCPs, CSD as we are, it's also quite frustrating because you end up, and we spent a lot of time using it, at the moment of the trade, or 2 seconds after to validate the trade, to redo the full KYC and the full credit check. And you end up with requiring everyone to pre-fund everything. So what I mean is that for listed asset and regulated asset, either we disrupt the model, including the central order book. Okay, we say, okay, we'll trade totally differently and so on and so forth. Either this technology is not bringing that much, and it's still kind of limited in terms of performance today. So for everything which is really close to real time, we are super real time. Everything which is close to real time, even with, we worked a lot with Ethereum and Consensus, and the best that we can do in labs is 2,000 trades a second.
So I mean, though, but if you look around the financial market infrastructures today, the main use cases around DLT, so CLS Bank in the States, net FX transactions successfully using DLT. It's a back office process. Digital Asset have been working with the Australian Stock Exchange for a while about the CHESS replacement, which again is a post-trading space. I don't think I've come across use cases from the digital asset providers of technology where they're talking about trying to replace the trading performance, the front-end side. And in fact...
Yes, you're right. So it suits more digital process because they are batch. So it's back to, I think, the question of the cost of the distribution and the cost of the synchronization once you got distributed, and added the fact it's distributed and secure, so all of that. So there's some limitation today about it, but on the other hand, if you look to the crypto exchange, they trade, today, okay, some of them do 2 trades a day, but you go to Coinbase or whatever.
You go to Gemini, and Gemini have employed, what is it, Robert Cornish, the ex-CIO of the NYSE. These exchanges will be challenging, I think, the status quo of many exchanges.
But really, I think that my guess, the problem is not so much the technology. I think the blockchain or the DLT can fit some of the model. I think for some others, the central will be more performant, but who cares? In fact, this is not what is really. As long as they are open. The problem is that very often when it's central, it's private and not open. And this is a kind of difference in kind of mindset. And then I said, as I said, I think the regulation is so strict today, and we try to disrupt only one part of it, so whatever the settlement or so on and so forth. When, if you really want to do something that disrupts, you have to see the entire trade flow, including what we do, which is the central order book. And I will tell you, today, 40% on most of exchanges of the trading is happening at the auction. So during the few last seconds of the trading, today we made a price during the day, especially in the morning when US is sleeping, and this price is very often one HFT against another HFT. What is the real value of this price when you think about it today? It's challengeable, so.
Indeed. Euronext has acquired a number of businesses of late. So Comsize, Fastmatch. What do you see that's different in the way that they use technology, and how added do you see that sort of acquisition as being for Euronext's vision of growth?
So for the one who doesn't know, Fastmatch is an ECN, FX ECN based in New York. They are very, very similar to Euronext. So they are ultra low latency, highly configurable kind of ECN infrastructure. It was for us wish and the ambition to diversify to foreign exchange, because we were really not present in this. And ComSize is a research facilitation platform, cloud-based, same. Well, it's not a trading platform, but very well advanced. So what they teach us, they first they do what we do, but with 10 times less people. So there's something about getting small, which is very interesting in those organizations. It's not an easy equation, because as soon as you add the requirement for control and complexity, you tend to double every other week the size of their team and end up where you have started, or even fatter. So I think there's something about this creativity, entrepreneurship that we are all learning from. It's also a way for us to enrich our offering to our customers. So the idea is to have an ecosystem that will grow. And we are now into more interesting stuff, because after the post-merger integration work, there's the first 2 years, or you want to take advantage of the cross-selling and putting aside the two community to extend the reach. And now we are starting the true technological merger, or at least starting this journey where both sides can teach the other. So we try not to be data arrogant, because we are the acquirer, and they try to be not that arrogant, because some of them have made a lot of millions by getting to Euronext.
So what you're saying is we should all sell our companies to exchanges, and
yeah, you can try.
We've done that before at ExacPro. I suppose we're almost ready for lunch. Am I okay opening up to the audience?
Oh, yeah, sure.